Welcome to today's presentation on benchmarking groups. This presentation is brought to you by Sheep Connect SA, and Sheep Connect SA is supported by Australian Oil Innovation and SA Sheep Industry Fund. You can find more information about the project at our website or follow us on Twitter. We would also like to thank Elkie Hocking for organising this meeting on benchmarking and also bringing to you the guest speaker Sandy McEachern of Holmes Sackett. I'll now hand it over to Sandy to give his presentation on benchmarking groups.
So just, I guess by way of introduction, so I joined Holmes Sackett in 2002, that's when I joined the business, and then myself and John Francis, who's now my business partner, he joined in 2005 and we bought the business in 2007. So John and I have actually owned Holmes Sackett since 2007, which was when David Sackett and Phil Holmes left the business. So I've been there now, whatever that is, 17 years, 18 years. And just to kick this off, I would say our benchmarking groups are the single most effective thing we do with our clients. So I think you go to a field day, or I present at a field day, and people ask me to present on a topic, and I have to make it general. You know, generally speaking, I think this is what's important. Generally speaking, if I had to say one thing, this is what it is. And I think that is useless to 95% of the people in the crowd after all these years of doing it, because there is no one thing that everyone does. There are things that they might hold in common, there are things that drive, from a profit sense, that drive the profit, but it's not all the same. It's not a recipe. And the other thing that's different between businesses is that people have different goals and they want to do different things with their business. And I have no problem with that, because at the end of the day, if you've made that a conscious decision about what you want to do, it's your right to do it. And so one of the first rules that I establish in any of the groups I run is that we've all got the right to suggest you do something, and you've got the absolute right to do nothing. And I've had guys who've benchmarked for 20 years and not changed anything, but they love the cut and thrust of the conversation and the arguments and the social side of it. They like the culture within what these benchmark groups brings. So I think one of the big misconceptions early on is that Holmes Sackett's going to come along and we're going to tell you what you have to do, and if you don't do it, well, you're out, or things like that. That just doesn't happen. It's up to you to do. We'll come along, and I will not hold back in terms of if I think there's an opportunity, if I think you could change something. I said it's my job to tell you what I think. Okay, and without fear or favour, it's my job to tell you what I think. It's my job to show you the numbers, it's my job to bring forth the research or whatever it is to back that up, but it's your job to decide whether you do or don't do anything within that. And so benchmarking has always been a large part of what our business has done, and we still think it is the core component of our consultancy, because at the end of the day, we have this database of numbers. We have people who've been benchmarking for 25 years straight, never missed a year. And so that database of numbers of what was working, what's not working, what's changing, what's not changing, what achievable levels of performance are, is critical to us in terms of helping our clients. We think it's critical to us in terms of helping our clients map a way forward for themselves. And so, right as we speak today, that was the list of benchmark groups that we've got running, and the numbers beside them are the dates they started. And so that top one, Flinders Island, was my first job in February 2002 when I joined Holmes Sackett. Go down to Flinders Island. They think they might want to start up a benchmarking group. You go down and get it going, and we'll see where it goes. Those guys in that group will proudly tell you they've taught me everything I know. Okay? And it's, to be honest, the journey with them in terms of from now to then and what they've achieved is remarkable, and it's on them. Because if I thought it was on me, I would charge a lot more for doing this than I do. Okay? At the end of the day, it's your money, it's your farm, it's your decisions, it's your work, it's your risk. It's all those things that go into it that are you. It's not me, it's what you do. We analyse numbers, we look at the background research, we bring forth some experience from other areas, we look at what other clients have done, and we can put those things forward to help you as suggestions. It's on you. If you don't want to do anything with that, that's fine. If you choose to do something with that, that's fine. If it goes wrong, guess what? It's on you. That's it. You're taking the risk, not me. And so it's not about me telling you this is what you have to do. It's not about anyone else in the group telling you that this is what you have to do. It's about trying to help each other, lift. And I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you just some effect, which I think, in my mind is quite remarkable in terms of what's been achieved in 20 years of agriculture. So, I don't know, what's there, 10 or 12 groups there. I look after about 6 or 7 of them. I personally have a farming business. I'm in one of them. When I go to the meeting I'm in, I take my staff and they're part of it because I want them to understand what I'm trying to achieve. I want them to hear what, if I'm in amongst a group of peers who know what they're doing and they tell me I'm mad, I want them to hear that, and I want them to hold me accountable with what I do. So I see it as a great means of communicating not only between farms but internally within a farm, so that everyone in my business is on board with what I'm doing, and it provides me with some accountability. I don't get to do whatever the hell I like anymore and just say, oh, that's what happened. I've got someone in my business who rings me up and says, you said you'd do this, why isn't it happening? You said it was a good idea, why has that changed? And that's good, I think, for me, because it holds me accountable to what I'm doing. So, the longest running group, Flinders Island, since 2002, the first Tassie group since 2004. I think if there's no value in this, or if there's not substantial value in this, those groups don't last that long. The longevity of those, and they are as strong as they ever were, the longevity of those, I think, tells you about the value you can get from a good group. We have had groups fall over in the past, so there's no guarantee that you get a group going and it will last. That's not guaranteed. But if you can get a good group together of like-minded people who are in it for the right reasons, and I'll talk about the reasons in a minute, if you're in it for the right reasons, I think you'd still be here in 20 years. And you'd still think the value will be here in 20 years. And so, there's more to it than just the numbers that will come out each year. There's more to these groups than that. One of the things I always talk about is who finds it hard to get an opinion on what you should do on your farm and make your farm better? Thousands of them, isn't there? The livestock agent will come on and tell you your stock should be different. Everyone who comes on near your farm will tell you that, give you an opinion about what could be better. And I think, in my experience, the difficulty is not finding advice. The difficulty is working out what's the good advice, and what's the advice that's going to make the difference to your business. Okay, and so good advice for someone, your next door neighbour, might not be good advice for you. And it mightn't be because it's not going to help you. It might be because it's not the next best thing you should do. So you might have something over here that can make you $100,000, and someone's got you distracted on something that's making you $5,000. Or it may be that that particular thing, while it works for a neighbour, isn't going to work for you. And so the difficulty, I think, in agriculture is not the quantum of advice. The difficulty in agriculture is sifting through all of it and working out what are the few things I need to concentrate on for the next few years to really make a big impact on my business. And to be fair to a lot of clients, you know, a lot of clients reach a point and you say it's not the technical genetics, it's not pastures, it's not soils, it's not any of that. You know, you should be out buying more farms, you know, because that other stuff, it's only going to fiddle around the edges. But if you don't get out and take this opportunity now, that could be a lifetime decision in your business. So sometimes the emphasis shifts just through circumstance. You know, now's not the time to be worrying about my genetics. Now's the time to be worrying about whether I can get the neighbour's place. You know, and so that, and being part of those groups keeps you alert to those changes that are going on in the game. And in 20 years of doing this, or nearly 20 years of doing this, I've seen immense change in terms of where the emphasis should be. And I've had to change my advice along the way. And so if you think your advice is from 20 years ago is definitely going to be relevant now, you're kidding yourself. Things change. You know, 20 years ago where commodity prices were, we weren't giving the same advice as what we are now. But I think someone asked, I forget who it was, asked about are we in good times? I think we're going to look back at this period where we're in and talk about it as the boom time in our generation of farming. You know, where it was all there to be made. That's how good I think it is right now. I think from 2002 to 2012, it was a grind. At around 2012, the wheel turned and the economics of this game changed substantially, and it's just kept getting better every year from there. And so I think right now we have a huge opportunity. And if you're thinking about expanding your business, if you're thinking about setting yourself up for the future, it's now. I think this is the opportunity to be doing it. So what this benchmarking about, in my opinion, is the benchmarking numbers on their own aren't the guts of it. All they are doing is providing this sort of platform for which you guys can have good, constructive conversations with each other about helping each other in your business. So that when you're trying to help each other, and I have a genuine belief that in all my groups, the only people that stay in the groups are the people who actually are genuine about helping each other. So the people who are just in it for themselves don't last. The people who are genuine about, I'm genuine about being part of a group and helping each other, they're the ones that last and they're the ones that really benefit. So, and having those numbers on the table allows people to do that in a constructive manner. Okay, so it doesn't really matter that you're different. That second Tasmanian group, first one, sorry, that's been going since 2004, they now reject people coming into their group based on the fact that they're too similar. So in that group, they've got guys who are 100% irrigation, growing poppies, potatoes, peas, beans, carrot seed, broccoli, all horticultural crops, out to people who are rangelands wool growers on 350 mils of rain, and that's all they do is wool. And they want in their group, when they're looking to bring new members in or something, they're after people that do it differently, or do different things, or that aren't doing what they're doing, because they want some new ideas, some fresh ways of looking at issues, some fresh ways of looking at their business. That's what they're after. So I know it is important to have some perspective about how what you do relates within your area. That is important. But over time, you'll get very confident in what you do, and actually where you get your next round of improvement or your next idea will probably start coming from things that are very different to what you do. That's been our experience. So having seen it, and I'm fortunate because I've seen it and I've been involved in it for a very long time. I would say don't get bogged down worrying about whether you're being, are we comparing apples with apples? Because actually that's not really what it's about. And you quickly lose sight of how your numbers compare to other people's numbers, and you start thinking about how your numbers compare to last year's numbers, and how you are, if you've identified an opportunity in your business, or someone else in the room has identified an opportunity in your business where you think you can improve it, might be the price you get, might be the kilos of production, might be your costs. Am I getting that? Am I achieving those things? And measuring it and being able to, look back and say, yeah, I did it, or look forward and say, I did it, or I'm going to do it. So I wouldn't get bogged down, even though, like that Flinders Island group, they're on an island, but if you go there, they'll all tell you they're all different. Can't compare, that guy with that guy because he's at the north and I'm in the south, and there's 25 mils difference in rainfall, and so they're all different. But that's not what it's about. Don't worry about that. It's not about the comparison of you to the rest of your peers and the numbers and whether they're better or worse. It's about identifying opportunities in your own business and having the support of a good bunch of people around you who understand what you're on about to help you, motivate you, get you out of, when you're worried about whether you should or shouldn't do something, you can call someone and they say, I've seen your numbers, mate. Just do it. You're right. It can't go wrong. Don't worry that the bank won't lend you the money. They'll come round. And so that's what you want, I think. Because I think farming's a lonely place. So there's plenty of people who tell you how to do it. But in terms of knowing how well your business is going, I reckon it's pretty difficult in farming. So what does a very profitable business look like? Well, it's got a productive resource base, got high soil fertility, pastures that grow a lot of feed, it's got good infrastructure, and in my opinion, it's got good people in it. And that's probably the one that gets undersold the most, I think, if we look at our benchmarking and who makes the most profit over time, it's not where they are, it's not what enterprise they're in, it's not whether they've got irrigation or not irrigation, it's not where the rainfall is, it's the people. It's the people driving it. And what they've managed to work out, that works in their area with their resource base, and they're the ones that drive it. They've got to be able to motivate everyone involved. They've got to be able to stay focused. They've got to take the risks. They've got to know when to bail out. They've got to be able to wear the mistakes. It's people. And so, driving through the countryside and identifying the most profitable farms, I actually think is very difficult. Because in my experience, you drive past some of these farms and you don't see pastures that are perfect. And you don't see the best looking stock. And you don't see the infrastructure Mickey Mouse. But if you dug in underneath that, if you knew the numbers, you'd see that the soil fertility was good. The pastures are very productive, they just graze pretty hard. The infrastructure is adequate without being flash. But, stock are where you left them. One man can work in the yards. All that sort of stuff is in place, even if it doesn't look flash. And the people behind it ask bloody good questions. And that, I reckon that's the sign of really good management. Is you know them because when I show up to a day like this, they're the ones asking me the really difficult questions that make me stop and think, oh, geez, that's a really good question. And so I think it's hard to see that, and it's hard to discern I think it's hard to discern in any other forum than when everyone's numbers are on the table about what's going on. There are plenty of people who tell me how good their business is, and I just listen to what they do and think, well, it doesn't really correlate to a lot of the stuff I've seen, but I don't know. So it's very difficult, I think, to do it any other way. They have efficient enterprises, so they have competitive cost of production. or low. It's low, but not lowest. So this is where understanding your numbers is pretty important, because the most profitable farms have the optimum mix of cost of production, and price. So they don't have the highest price necessarily, but they don't have a bloody low price. They don't have the lowest cost of production necessarily, but they don't have a high cost of production. And they mightn't produce the most, but they produce at a level where that margin between cost of production and production is at its best. And so it's that optimum mix of those three things, which means you've got to have the optimum mix of everything underneath that: the production system, the cost structure, the labour efficiency. You've got to be going to the best market, not necessarily the highest price market, but the one that you can get to with the highest margin. And so most of what we talk about in any other forum is about where you get the highest price, or how many, whether I got 500 kilos of beef per hectare off that pasture. But actually on its own, that stuff doesn't actually mean anything really. What we're after is the optimum combination of all those three things. And so again, time in a group like this with numbers on the table, and I think it takes 3 years of numbers before you really start to get confident, A, in your own numbers, B, in everyone else's numbers, and that's when the big gains start to happen. Because in the first year you go, well, that was bloody hard to do, and I had to fudge a bit to get it over the line, and I'm not so sure about those numbers, and I bet Ben did the same. 2 years in, the numbers look similar. 3 years in, this is a pattern going on here. I'm starting to get confident. I got my numbers right. Perhaps Ben got his right. I'm starting to get some confidence now in what I'm doing. And then from there, you really build quickly, I think. Not only that, you get a better understanding of what everyone else is doing in their business. The other sign of a really strong business is how fast it grows. And so, what's possible in agriculture in your mind? If you wrote down your assets under management now, tell me what you think it's possible in 20 years' time to have, what's the possibility with those assets? I expect to make more profit in 10 years' time on my farm than I am now, and I could do that by not changing a thing. Okay? Because price will go up and my margins will increase and the profit will go up. So setting yourself a target of, I want to earn this much profit per hectare, has to be a short-term target, because in 5 years it'll need to be higher. Now, it doesn't go up like this in a straight line, so it goes up like that, but it does, the trend is up. So 20 years of benchmarking data shows you that the trend is up. Any long-term commodity price data shows you that the trend is up. So if we continue to make more profit over time, what's going to happen to our land values? They have to go up, right? So something has to give, so land prices will continue to go up.
Is there a ratio between cost of production and the asset, as far as
key numbers, long-term trend. My target, because I know this will put me in the top 20% of farms we benchmark against, I want that margin between cost of production and price to average 35%. If it blows out to 60%, I know something's wrong. What's 60% telling us? If the margin's blowing out to 60%, and we know the long term's 35%, what's it telling us? We need to produce more, because the marginal cost of extra production will earn us more profit. All that stuff we couldn't afford to do a decade ago, we can now afford to do. So at current commodity prices, although beef's been a little bit on the downside, where wool was 2 years ago, where lamb is now, where beef will be in 6 months' time, it's going to be good. If you want to really maximise your wealth creation over time, what's your most powerful tool? debt. Yeah. So debt is important in that. If you're a good operator in agriculture, what sort of rate of return can you achieve? Yield, return on assets under management?
If I do 6%, what I would say is your operating return, and I get 6% capital gains, then I've got 12%.
What's my cost of capital?
Whatever you borrow from the bank.
Yeah, it starts with 2 now. If my return is higher than my cost of capital, what's that tell me?
Still got capacity.
Borrow more. We've got heaps of capacity to use this at the moment and leverage off it. What happens to $1 million worth of debt in 20 years' time? What's it worth if you haven't paid it off, but you've serviced it? It's $1 million, isn't it? That asset you bought for $1 million, now, what's it worth in 20 years' time?
10.
14. If we can do 12%, 12 and a half, 13, let's call it 10. So what happens to the real cost of debt? Goes down. $1 million worth of debt 10 years ago isn't anything like, it had a lot more value 10 years ago than it's got now. The real cost of debt goes down over time. If you survive, right? You've got to survive. So, debt's our friend. Like a lot of people get hung up about, really, not sure we want to tell each other, our balance sheet, how much debt we've got. Scream from the rooftops. If you know what you're doing and you're using this, this is a tool, and something you can be proud of. You don't have to talk about it to anyone else, but in a group like this, you talk about it because that's what's giving you momentum. And so that in this group here, and I showed you before that guy who's the single most profitable farm in that group. Okay, the group has grown at about the same rate that he has in that group, but there are people in that group who have grown at twice that rate in net assets over that period of time. So he's the single most profitable, i.e. he's the bloke that yields 6%. And you want that, but there are people in that group who have grown faster than that and haven't yielded 6%. How can they do that? They took on more debt. They leveraged themselves more. Okay? And so I've got farmers who I've worked with for 20, it's not 20 years, 15 years call it, who have immaculate farms. Their operations are second to none, but they are not growing wealth anywhere near. I've got farmers who never quite get it right because before they get it right, there's another farm on the market and they bought that one and it's a shambles again. And I'm a wool producer, but cattle are cheap, so I bought a heap of cattle. I know nothing about cattle, and so they just lurch but grow, and so it's not all about having the perfect system. That helps. I'd rather have 6% trying to service my debt than 3% or 2% or 1%, or God forbid no percent. But also understanding when you can take on more, when you can take your risks, how much you can handle, and knowing what it's going to take to survive is also very valuable along the way. Genetics, who sowed what pasture, who lambs when, calves when, who sells to what market, who got what price. You'll have those discussions, but the big stuff will be around business growth. The stuff that'll change your life, the stuff that'll really get you ahead, will be around the business stuff. It'll be around, geez, do you think I could really do that lease at that price? Well, go for it. I've seen your numbers. You could do that, stand on your ear. Think I should buy it? Mate, why are you buying that farm? You could buy something 3 times as big. Go for it. How much debt can you handle? You know, they're the conversations that, in my experience over this period, working with these people, they're the ones that have really changed businesses. Along the way, we've got to work out how do we keep good staff. You know, how do I turn myself from a buffoon who annoys everyone around the property to someone who can get a good team going and keep them going? Because if I'm going to grow, I'm not going to do it on my own, and it's a constraint to the family farm, where you know, I've got clients who've really struggled through this period of I've got a farm that I can manage on my own to going to the next stage where I've got a farm where I need to rely on other people to manage it for me. And so I'm going to need to relinquish responsibility. I'm going to need to employ a different type of person. I'm going to need to learn some systems about how to do that. But you know what? There's someone in this room who's already done that for me. So what are they doing? How'd you do it? How do you get through that? You know, succession. What happened with yours? How'd you get through that? What should I do? What do you think? They're the conversations where if you've got good people who know your business around you, that's where you get your value from. So, and that's what this stuff's about. So the potential is huge. I've seen it. We've got the numbers to show it. Having said that, in that group, where the average has done that, there's a client who has done nothing. He's come every meeting, he's not changed a thing, he likes what he's doing, and he knows that that's never going to put him up the top of the benchmarking each year, but he loves what he's doing and he's happy at that. He also loves the cut and thrust of the arguments and the meetings and the social side of it and support, and he loves having the discussions, but he doesn't want to change, and he's earned the right not to. So good luck to him. That's your right. You don't have to do anything. So we've got the right to suggest anything, and you've got the right to do nothing. That's that. This is the profits from that farm that I showed you, the growth in net assets over that period of time. And so you can see there that even when you're in one of the most profitable farms, there are periods that you go through where, you're struggling. For whatever reason, your profits aren't up to scratch. So it might be that commodity prices are low, it might be that you're badly affected by drought, it might be that you've taken on a big acquisition and things have gone haywire on you. What you thought you were going to get done just isn't getting done. Things are out of control. I see project management as a big thing in farming, that you take on a big capital project and the manager of that project can actually really affect the returns from the farm for you. Things get you get behind on things don't happen on time, things aren't set up for things to happen. It can really influence results. That's all right. Someone who's good at what they do knows that I'll get that stuff sorted out, get it back on track, I'll be right. I know what my recipe is for success. I just got to get it back on track. You also go through these periods where you're not earning more, but you get the confidence to actually not change. And so if you're already going along really well, I reckon the hardest thing is to know what not to change. Because MLA is telling us one thing, AWI is telling us another thing, you've got all the parasites like me running around telling you another thing. You've got all this information coming at you, tells you how to do it differently. How do you know what not to do? What not to change? Well, if my benchmark data keeps saying what I'm doing is putting me up in that 6% bracket year on year on year, and I can't see anyone doing better than that, then why would I change? If you want to average 6%, you've got to have years where you do 10 or 12% return on assets. That's another thing that gets people. They say, I got last year, 2 years ago, I'm a wool producer, I got 6%. Well, mate, if you want your average to be 6%, that year you need to do 10 or 12 because all your gods were aligned. You had great prices, great season. That year you need to be shooting the lights out. because there'll be these years, we know for sure, where coming out with your pants on is a good result. You know, commodity prices dive, drought, whatever the issues are. So it's going to be variable along the way. It's not, people just don't come in every year, I got my 6%, I got my 6%. That doesn't happen. You know, it's variable. And so, again, the purpose of the benchmark is to be able to track that over time. Coming out with break even in a year can be a good result, and you can know that it hasn't set. That's not meaning you've got to change everything. You know, what I'm doing is still working. It's just that was a bad year, and everyone had a bad year. So after 2007, in the Central West group that was running, the biggest thing that came out of our benchmarking day after the drought was basically everyone just went, oh shit, I thought I was the only one that lost money. And I thought what I was doing all of a sudden just had to be completely wrong because I was bleeding. You know, the feed cart was out, I was bleeding money, I lost money. But then you look around and say, well, actually, it was pretty much the same for all of us. And actually, the people whose systems were working better before lost less. And so, even though we lost money, it wasn't the system's fault, it was the fact that circumstances deemed it just wasn't a good year. So, that business is single enterprise, no diversification. So, could be wool, could be beef, could be lamb, doesn't matter. But that one happens to be single enterprise. You don't need to be diversified to do it, which is a relief, right? Why is that a relief? It's easy. Yeah. So that's usually a big thing at the start of benchmark groups. Although listening through you guys didn't have a lot of different enterprises. When we went to Tasmania, when we started down there, my God, benchmarking was hard because they had so many different enterprises. But even the guys growing crops now are down to 3 core crops, you know, in their rotation. And everything revolves around those 3 core crops because they're the most valuable. They're the ones that consistently perform. We throw a few things in and out, but it's those 3 core crops that drive it. People who have 3 different sheep enterprises or 4, you know, end up with just single enterprise. Doesn't matter which one, do it well, it works. So it tends to be something that happens over time. We see businesses get simpler and grow because it's easier to grow something that's simple. Hats off to people who can run multiple enterprises. That is awesome management. That's what I think. Now, if you can get all those balls in the air and get them all to land exactly right over the course of a year when you've got multiple enterprises, well, that's good management. Yeah. You don't have to do it, but it's great management if you can. So that's the stuff we want to learn, right? We want to learn how that works here. I can't tell you. Okay, I can come over from Wagga, throw ideas at you. I can look at your numbers and say, well, I think there's opportunity there. And if I look around the room, it looks like that, you know, what that bloke's doing is doing better than that one. That farm is doing better than that one. But there's no recipe for it. It's not a recipe. So I don't have to come over and say, well, you need to be calving in August, running 12 DSC to the hectare, selling all your steers to the feedlot market. You know, I'll bet you there's solutions in this room. And then it's just refining it from there. So that's what it's about. Where's the fun in a benchmarking group? Busting 90s fads. You know, you've got to diversify. Bullshit. What are the other ones we should listen to? You know?
What's the one go around
Hey?
Regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, well so busting current fads, you know. Show us the money. Show us the returns from that if they're so good. You know, and like in our benchmark groups, I can't actually think of someone in regenerative agriculture off the top of my head. We have cell graziers, rotational graziers, set stockers. You know, I think we cover all that ground in the benchmarking database. We have people come in and, you know, try things. You know, I've had clients try techno grazing, and then they pull out what they think works out of that, implemented part of the business, but the whole business is in techno-grazing. I've got clients who fertilise with nothing but single super, and I've got clients that fertilise with compost. And so, it's not I'm not coming here prescribing anything. I'm coming here saying, you guys work it out. So the fun stuff is, I think, these discussions about what works, what doesn't. It's the really motivating each other to keep going or to take that next step that you want to take, that you're a bit unsure, and it's the support when things don't go to plan. That often happens reasonably often, right? You've got a plan, but it just turns to custard. Well, that happens to everyone. So that helps knowing that, I think. So it's not a recipe. It's not a competition. Although having said that, when I took the Flinders Island group on a bus tour through southwest Victoria, and they're all at the back arguing about some KPI or the other, and I was driving the bus and I yelled out, "It's not a competition." One bloke who's a plumber started out farming, yelled back, "Bullshit, it's not a competition." But really it is, really it is about your own. So I think personally, I've seen guys sit on farms that are already up and going and keep them going, and I don't think that's half as impressive as the person who shows up to a farm that's run down, it's got no capital, and they've got to turn that farm into something, because one thing about a farm that's, starting from a low base, it's not generating profits, and then you've got to work out where every dollar goes. It's going to give you the most impact to get that out. If you're sitting on the farm, it's already soil fertility's good, pasture's good, stock's good, infrastructure's good, there's plenty of money coming out of it. The thing that tends to happen is you become a lot less judicious about where you spend that money. And the path there is not what people see. So you walk on a farm, it looks really good. What you don't see is how they got there. And that path is really important. Where you spend next year's profits is critical. Because if you want to spend an all 30% as first, tick all of them off. Okay, so don't renovate a pasture till your soil fertility across the farm is 100%. Because there's more return, bang for your buck on soil fertility than there is in renovation of pastures. So getting that stuff, understanding where you've got to spend your profits, and understand that, okay, well, if I'm here, I'm not going to have great infrastructure till I get to there. And then I'm not going to have great pastures till I get to there. In fact, I may never, because I may end up buying more farms before I ever get that right. And that's the stuff that I think is important. It's that path. How do you get there? It's not a place for ego. There's too many other blokes pulling you down. So the people who don't last are the people who come in because they just want to see how good they are. I've never seen one of them last in a benchmark group. People who want to come in and sell seed stock, I'll join this benchmark group and sell a heap of bulls. That doesn't last. So that's not that. This isn't that forum. Okay, it's not that. It's a place for helping each other. That's what it's for.
This presentation is brought to you by Sheep Connect SA, and Sheep Connect SA is supported by Australian Oil Innovation and the SA Sheep Industry Fund. You can find more information about the project at our website or follow us on Twitter